The second of these gunpowder empires is the Safavid Empire, established in Persia or modern-day Iran. It's established by Ismail, who does so using conquest. Ismail is going to assume the title of Shah and establish a hereditary dynastic monarchy in Iran for the next 200 or so years. The Shah is simply just a title that the ruler has. It's the equivalent to the Sultan in the Ottoman Empire or like a king in Europe. The most important and unique distinction for the Safavids is the fact that they are Shia Islam and promote Shia or Shiite Islam. And when you look at the Muslim world, there are two major branches to the religion. You have what most Muslims are, Sunni, and then a smaller minority, which is Shia. And even looking at the Muslim world today, it is primarily in Iran where most Shia or Shiite Muslims are. And this is an artifact from the Safavid Empire and the fact that the Safavids made sure that their empire was uniformly Shiite. So, what is the difference? It's a difference that dates back to around the 700s, and it initially was started by a dispute over who would be the proper caliph, or who would succeed the proper caliph. The caliph is a title given to the religious, the political, and military leader of the Islamic world. And back in the 700s, there was a dispute as to who was the rightful successor to take this title. The Sunni believed that essentially anyone was eligible for this title, while the Shia or the Shiites, they believed that it had to be a blood descendant of Muhammad. And so initially that's where the difference began. And over the course of the years, the Sunni and the Shia, although they both recognized the Quran as being, the holy book and practice, Sharia law, but you'll have differences in things like holidays and customs and traditions and, some of these things that will set them apart. Mostly because of the Safavid Empire and the establishment of Shia Islam throughout, even today, Iran is a little bit different than some of their Muslim neighbors. Another thing is the language or the alphabet that is used. So most of the Muslim world in the Middle East uses Arabic, while in Iran it's Persia and Persian. So a couple of unique differences that still exist to this day, thanks to the Safavids. Now, some of the authority for why the Shah had the proper authority to rule was based on this principle of the hidden imam. And this was the belief that the 12th descendant of the bloodline of Muhammad, who was rightfully to inherit the position of caliph, had went into hiding, sometime in the 800s. And the Prophet foretold that one day the 12th Imam, the true descendant of Muhammad, would return and assume his position as leader of the Muslim world. And so the Shahs or the rulers of the Safavids were somewhat of a stand-in for the hidden Imam. And so it's a kind of like a version of divine right in some respects, that the Shah was not entirely a secular ruler, but there was some of this based in religious tradition. The golden age of the Safavid Empire is under the rule of Shah Abbas I. And Abbas I is going to build a capital city at Isfahan. And Isfahan is going to serve in much the same ways that the Palace of Versailles served for the French king and that Istanbul served for the Ottoman Sultan. And that is to demonstrate the physical manifestation of the power of the Shah. Isfahan will be beautified. It will inspire and awe onlookers. It serves as the central area for the Shah to rule the Safavid Empire through. And economically speaking, early on, the Safavids are going to thrive, especially with the production of carpets, Persian carpets, and being able to obtain silk from China relatively easily, manufacture it into Persian rugs or Persian carpets, and then sell it. Now, just like the Ottomans, in the later years, the Safavids are also going to experience a number of problems. We had already mentioned the shift in trade routes, whereas, economically, now you have Europeans able to, and other merchants, able to gain access to China directly. And so the silk trade that was so profitable that the Safavids and others had a monopoly over, they're going to be undercut. You also have continuous conflicts. The Safavids are maybe best well known for their rivalry with the Ottomans. Both Muslim gunpowder empires, but the Ottomans and the Safavids have, differences culturally between the Sunni and the Shia. They're competing economically. They're competing over territory. And so the entire existence of the Safavids and the Ottomans are going to be wars between the two sides. And lastly, the Safavids also have to deal with nomadic raiders from their northern borders. The Safavids will, for a time, use slave soldiers. They will, a little bit similar to the Devshirme system, not entirely, but to raid some of the people to their north and use some of their soldiers, or enslave them and use them as soldiers in their armies. Well, these nomadic raids on Safavid trade routes and cities will continue to give them problems moving forward. And by the mid-1700s, 1722 to be precise, the Safavid capital of Isfahan will be captured, and the Shah will have his position abolished.